Hello, so today we're going to talk about how litter on the Medway affects wildlife and the rest of the world. My name is Benita. I'm a sailor, a scuba diver, and a paramedic. I love being in and on the water, and I love the wildlife that depends upon it, like the fish and the seals that live in it, or ducks that live on it, and the birds that live around it. What plastic do we use and how does it affect the environment? Last year, I got to go on an adventure on a sailboat in the ocean to see how the plastic we use can affect the ocean and the wildlife. Did you know that plastic can last for 450 years or more? If it is left in the environment, the sun and the sea makes it become brittle. This means it becomes weak and can break up more easily into smaller and smaller pieces. These pieces are smaller than peas. We call these small pieces microplastic. Microplastic can easily be swallowed by sea animals and birds. I found out about Tanya at the Living River Foundation because she had been on a similar adventure to me, on a boat in the ocean to see how much of our plastic is in it. Tanya now tests in the water in the Medway for microplastic. She also organises litter picks in the river, the marina, and on the islands in the Medway. The marina in Chatham is surrounded by restaurants, fast food shops, coffee shops, and supermarkets. When we pick up the litter that is floating in the marina, some of it comes from the nearby shops, like plastic drinks bottles and plastic bottle lids, coffee cups, food containers made of polystyrene and plastic, sweet wrappers, and other items like footballs, flip-flops, plastic toys, plastic bags, and straws. Some rubbish gets trapped in the marina, and this makes it easier for us to collect. However, there is wildlife in the marina. There's the fish, the jellyfish, and the birds that depend upon the quality of the water. And all this rubbish is harmful to them. We also find this rubbish along and in the river too. But the river is moving constantly, so the rubbish also moves constantly along the river. We've also picked up litter on Hoo Island, which you can only get to by boat. It is in the middle of the River Medway and surrounded by water. People do not live on that island, but birds use it as a safe place to live and to breed. You would think that if people didn't go there, then there wouldn't be much rubbish, wouldn't you? Sadly, that is not the case. On one visit, I picked up over 500 single-use plastic bottles in less than 2 hours, and there were many, many more, and lots of other things too. Can you imagine how big 500 bottles are? Bigger than me. The boat was so full up with rubbish, we couldn't take any more. That's very sad, isn't it? Especially when you think this is all harmful to the wildlife that lives there. It shouldn't and doesn't need to be there, and we can all do something about this. So how does plastic get into the rivers and the sea? Well, we can drop it on the ground, leave it on the beach. Some can blow out of full bins on a windy day. This rubbish, no matter where it is, can find its way into the rivers. The rain can carry it into the drains. The wind can blow it into the rivers or the sea, which flows into the ocean. Things like plastic drinks bottles and sweet wrappers are very light and can easily be blown by the wind. Most of the litter in the river and the sea is made up of these single-use items. These items may have come from your local area, or they may have travelled many miles down the river with the tide and wind. The rubbish that doesn't get trapped, especially the plastic bottles that are light, are constantly rolled backward and forward by the river tidal movements and waves, getting broken up into microplastic. The water from the estuary and rivers eventually finds its way out into the sea with the microplastic still in it. Once out at sea, because the water is constantly moving, it flows into the ocean, with all the plastic still being broken up into smaller and smaller pieces by the wind and the waves and the sun. That's how your rubbish can travel to the other side of the world. Actually, I saw this on my adventure. I visited a tiny island in the middle of the ocean. The beautiful sandy beach had so much microplastic on it, which had been washed up by the waves. All this plastic had been in the ocean for a long time, and it had come a long way. All of this plastic that starts here in Kent can end up far away and harm wildlife there too. So what do you think happens to the wildlife when our plastic gets into the rivers, sea and the ocean? Well, they can get trapped in it, they can eat it, and they can accidentally feed it to their young. This is exactly what happens to the many types of fish, seals and birds in the Medway too. So what creatures can you name that depend on the sea? Some of them are on this picture: crabs, turtles, dolphins, whales, seabirds, even Nemo. And what about the River Medway? There are all the birds, the fish, jellyfish, and the seals that live in there too. Have you ever seen a seal in the Medway? I have. So how do you think that makes them feel when they eat this plastic? Can you imagine how it would hurt your tummy if you accidentally ate plastic? Like you, it would make them very sick, and that makes me very sad. So how can you improve the environment, and who can you get to help you? We can maybe use the 5 R's to help us remember: refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and raise awareness. So let's talk about refuse. What does that mean? That's when we choose not to buy something in plastic. So we choose not to buy the drink that's in a single-use plastic bottle. Instead, we could use a refillable drinks bottle, or choose a toy not made up of plastic, maybe a wooden toy. Then reduce. How do we reduce the amount of plastic? Well, that's when we use something instead of plastic. So we use a cloth bag instead of a plastic bag. Or maybe we wrap our sandwich in a beeswax wrap instead of cling film. If we then can't avoid the plastic, we should try and reuse it so that we don't throw it away. So choose a container that can be washed out and used again, like a lunchbox instead of a bag. Next is recycle. This is where we need to make sure that our rubbish is rinsed out and goes into a recycle bin. If there aren't recycle bins around, take your rubbish home and put it in your recycle bin at home. And then how can we raise awareness? How can we get other people involved to help us make a difference? We could make posters for our local shops for them to put in their window. We could ask an adult family member to help you pick up the litter in your area. Maybe monitor the types of rubbish that you find and maybe publish it. It's not always easy to do all of these things, and we can't always do all of them all the time, and that's okay. But if we all do something regularly, we can make a difference. And the more of us that do something regularly, the bigger the difference we can make together.